Now, what is the standard Java syntax to get a program running? When we say Java syntax, it's like the standard thing you would have to be able to create a Java program and get it to run or get it to work properly. So you have to know what the Java syntax is. Now let's look at the Java syntax. We talked about class name, and I said classes are very important because it does refer to like the program, the Java program itself. Well, we're back again with class name or class. Whenever you want to create a Java program, you have to start with the class and give it a name. So in this case, class is the keyword. So as you can see here in this little screenshot, you can see that we have class, which will start with lowercase, by the way. So keywords do start with lowercase. And then we have the name of the class, and I call this class main. You can call it anything. The class name really just depends on what your program is about. For example, if I'm creating a program for a school, for students to be able to register for an after-school activity, I would most likely call my class after school. Something that makes sense to what my program is supposed to do. But you have to write class first. It's the keyword, and it has to all be in lowercase. So that's the first part of the Java syntax. The second part of the Java syntax is the main method. So the main method is a very important part of the Java syntax. It's again what gets the program to run. So you're probably going to say, but you said the class gets the program to run. Yes, the class is one thing, but the main method is the second thing. You have to have a class and a main method. It's not enough to just have a class, and the name of your class and open a curly brace. You also have to have a main method that's inside of the class, which means within this curly brace. So what is the main method? Well, the main method just gets the program to run. It has to have two curly braces, one at the beginning as you can see here and one at the end. You also notice that it has to have certain keywords. So it starts with public, and we're going to look more into what public is, and we actually refer to this as an access modifier. We're going to be looking more about access modifiers. There are different types and how we use them. But what you should just understand for now is public is an access modifier that just specifies anything inside of this main method can be accessed from anywhere in your class. So you can use it anywhere in the class. We also have static, which is another keyword that follows after public. And we're going to talk about this. This is a very important keyword as well that we use in Java. We're going to talk about why we use it. It has to do with accessibility as well, being able to access or use anything in your main method. And then we have void, and void is a keyword that just indicates your program or, the method is not returning anything. Main methods don't return anything. So there are no return statements, if that makes sense. But we'll see more in depth about void when we look into methods in our upcoming lessons. We have main. So main is nothing like main of the class. Remember that main here was only referring to the name of our class. And the name of the class, basically, I forgot to mention, has to start with an uppercase always. Like that's the best standard way to declare a class or to create a name of a class. But it's entirely different from this main. This main is just, it has to be part of your code or main method when you're writing it. You cannot change it. You cannot say, okay, I can give it another name. No, it has to be there. So main just means that this is the main method. So it needs to be present. Okay, it's entirely different from what I said about giving your class a name. And then for the main method, after you've put up all these 4 keywords, then you open brackets and write string. And string starts with a capital S. And then you put your square brackets and you put args, which represents or refers to arguments, which mean things that you will be declaring or writing inside of your main method. And string just means the things you're going to write are English-like statements. After all, you're coding in English-like statements or using English-like statements to code. So they all refer to string. And this is the reason why we have the string there. But there are other uses for why we have string arguments. But it refers to what you're putting inside of the main method. So the codes that you're going to include. Now, this is the main method syntax, like I said. And this is exactly how you have to write it. You have to start with these keywords. You have to open parenthesis. You have to put string and then arg. So it has to be written in this manner so that you can get your program to run successfully. If you change anything from your main method or your class, then you're going to be having some syntax errors, which you want to avoid having. So you're going to see the exact way of how we combine all of this into the complete Java syntax. Now, again, as I said, remember, we're going to look more into how or what these keywords are so you can better understand how to use them when you create other methods that are not main methods or the main method. So we can only have one main method in a Java program. We cannot have two. So one main method in a Java program. And we can have multiple class names because you're going to see some object-oriented programming concepts later on. Again, those are some more programming concepts we'll be looking at as we advance throughout this course. But just understand that mostly you'd have to have a class name always, and you'd have to have one main method per program. Now let's look at this entire combination. Before we look at the entire syntax or the entire structure of a main method, remember that it is not enough to just have your class and have your main method, but your program has to be functional, right? So how does your program become functional? You have to specify what you want to be inside of your main method. That is exactly what your program is going to be doing. Whether you're going to display a statement, and usually you have to start with displaying a statement. You can't just go and create a scanner object and an input and you haven't displayed anything in the screen. How does the user know what to enter? So there has to be a display statement, and then you create your scanner objects. Of course, that would have been maybe before, but you would create the data type and you declare the data type. So when I say declare, it means you specify what data type you are requiring from the user, what's the name of the variable where you're going to store the information the user is going to enter, and what is the scanner object, so just like we saw previously, and then what's the right scanner method to use depending on the data type that you've requested from the user. So it is only fair to have a system.out.println statement or system.out.print statement inside of your main method to make it functional. Without anything inside of the main method, really nothing happens when you run your program. So you have to put something. It has to be a print output print statement. And one thing you should remember that, I don't know if you've noticed, but all of these output statements have semicolon at the end. So most of the statements or the code lines that you'll be writing in Java end up with a semicolon at the end or a curly brace like you see with the class and with the main method at the beginning and at the end. So semicolon is just a way to close the coding line or just to close a statement. So you have to have it. If you don't have it, you can easily get a syntax error just because of that. So you need to be very vigilant on those type of things. So as you can see here, this is the general syntax of the main method, all what we've seen for the first three parts of the main method, all the way to the output statement. A combination or merging all of that together will produce this Java syntax, this basic Java syntax. So in the first line, you can see that this is a program that I created called main, and you see that the program name takes the name of the class. So this is why I said that a class is your program. It's basically your Java program. You can see the names align, and you have .java that indicates that it is a Java program. So you'd first have to write the keyword class with lowercase, then the name of your class. You can give it any name, but start with a capital letter first, and then open the curly brace because your main method is always inside of your class. And so you'd write your main method inside of this curly brace. So this curly brace that you've opened in this class here actually ends on line 5 because the main method is inside of it. It's what gets the program to run all together. So you put in your main method on the second line. You notice that once you open your curly brace and you hit enter, you come to some sort of indented spacing. You see that there's a spacing between this P and where the class actually ends. Even though Java is not a very not case sensitive, but I would say space sensitive programming language as Python is, but still, to have your code organized, making sense, it is always advisable to give spacing, okay? So once you hit enter inside of your class, you know that this main method has to be inside. So it automatically creates for you spacing. And this is why there's spacing before writing the main method. So once the main method has been written down, as we've already seen, then we open another curly brace. And of course, this curly brace that we've opened here is closed on line 4 before we close the curly brace of the class. And inside of your main method, you have to have something to get your program functional, to show something, to do something. And here we have a print statement, a system.out.print, not println, but just print. And we are putting this sentence, inside of our print statement enclosed in quotation marks. So anytime you write system.out.print or println and you open parenthesis, you have to put quotation marks and put what you want to display on the user screen enclosed between those quotation marks. So as you can see here, we have hello world. That's the statement we want to display on the user screen. And we close this code line with a semicolon. You always have to do that, so be very aware and vigilant of that. And if you run this program as it is, it will just display to you this hello world, and that just tells you your Java program is fully functional, containing the simple, standard, basic Java syntax. So if you wanted to ask for the user's name, for example, you would have the system.out.print statement or println statement, and in the quotation marks, you will say, what is your name? And then you close with a semicolon, you hit enter on the next line, which would be line 4 in that case, since the curly brace will move one line down. And then you have to create a variable. You have to create a variable, but before that, you have to specify the data type of the information you're requesting from the user, since you're saying, what is your name? And you know that that's obviously text-like information, since they're going to have to return their name with letters. Then you're going to write down on the next line, which is the line 4 string, and then you're going to give it a variable name so that you can store their actual name. And so you give the name, for example, the variable name as name. I mean, that's the most reasonable variable name you could give to store the name of the user. And then you put an equal sign, and then you write the name of your scanner object that you must have created right before even this print statement, which is that scanner obj equal to new scanner system in. So you write that obj after the equal sign dot the right scanner method, which in this case, since you're asking for name, text-like information, that is a string data type. Obviously, you would have to use string data type to receive such information. So that's why we would use .next line or .next, which would be the right scanner object, not scanner object, sorry, but the right scanner method to receive that information. And when you run this program overall, this general syntax, this basic Java syntax that I've said, you'll be getting this output of hello world. And or if you had the system.out.print where you say please enter your name, then you would be getting the output of please enter the name, or please enter your name, which the user would see, and they would actually be able to enter their name because you've already declared or stated the data type, the variable name, and you've said is equal to the scanner object dot next line or next. So it allows the user to be able to enter their name, and that's how your program receives that information from the user. All right, guys, so we've seen all of our programming language concepts, of our Java programming language concepts for this lesson, starting from the very beginning, which was about instance variables, all the way to now this Java syntax, which just gets your program running and functional. So we're going to now get our hands on creating our actual first Java project, which is a mini project. So be patient throughout this course. You will start to create projects with me. So it will be a student instructor kind of lesson. And then right after your 3 lessons for this course, you will be confident enough to create your own mini project, which you will be assigned to do. And each project comes with a certain amount of points. And as I've mentioned in the introduction to this course, the points do accumulate to your final target point. And if you reach the target point for that particular project or a particular combination of lessons, you get to receive an award. So your progress is monitored and your engagement is very much needed, so you can just become an awesome coder that you are. So we're going to try our hands on our first Java project, a mini Java project, applying all what you've learned from the first Java programming language concept in this lesson all the way to this Java syntax. You're going to apply all of that practically and see how they all work, and you're going to be a little bit more confident and gain a little bit more comprehension of what you've learned so far. So let's look at what our first Java project is all about.